Welcome to Leadership Comes Alive, brought to you by Leadership Global. This is the show that will help you develop transpersonal leadership skills that improve business relationships and results. Learn to lead beyond the ego and bring about better performing, sustainable organizations. Accelerated learning in a virtual environment will make sure your leadership comes alive.
Hello everyone, this is Danielle Grant from Leadership. Thank you for being with us today. Joining me today is Sharon Olivier. Sharon is a friend of Leadership's. She's an inspirational speaker and was previously the business owner of a management consulting firm. She teaches, researches and consults in strategic HR, leading in the 21st century, ego, eco, and intuitive intelligence in leadership, engagement, polarity management, diversity and inclusion. She also is an expert in the neuroscience of reframing unhelpful patterns and heart intelligence. She has also co-published a book on personal resilience called Diamonds in the Dust. Sharon holds an MA in industrial psychology. She's a master practitioner in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and a PNI practitioner, which is psychoimmunology. And she has over 20 years of experience working as a senior leader, OD consultant, learning facilitator, coach, and speaker. Throughout her career, Sharon has worked with an extensive list of clients, including Ipsen Pharmaceuticals, NATO, Lufthansa, the Egyptian Banking Council, Volkswagen Audi, BMW, Land Rover, De Beers, Anglo America, Sage Life, the University of Johannesburg, and Sasol International. Today we're speaking about resilience, a topic that's increasingly important both for individuals and in organizations, perhaps more so than in the past 50 years because of the levels of stress we're all subject to because of COVID-19. Sharon, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Danielle. It's a great pleasure to be here today.
And we're delighted to have you. So we're going to start today talking about personal resilience. So sort of simple question to start with. Why is resilience such an important topic at the moment?
Firstly, I think that everybody I talk to at the moment, because I'm talking to leaders every day in my work, are talking about the levels of anxiety being through the roof. And then if you look at some of the research that's going on in the world at the moment, I recently saw King's College research paper that said 57% of 3,000 UK individuals were showing signs of anxiety and 64% showing common signs of depression. And I think what's happening at the moment, even although people are traveling less, the thing that's happening is that they're very uncertain about their futures. We had the hope of, things getting back to normal, and that hope was crushed with the second wave. And there's a big struggle going on in the world at the moment with people coming to terms with that uncertainty. What's going to happen to my work? What's going to happen to my life? Where do I stand? Am I going to lose my job? And all those fears and anxieties, and the fact that there's isolation. People, especially those that are single, are feeling quite lonely. Loneliness is at an all-time high at the moment. And I think all these things together is causing resilience to become a very, very important topic at the moment.
So we're talking about the stress of being alone and particularly singletons who are perhaps never see anybody from one week's end to the next during this lockdown. So how does our stress level impact our ability to perform well, both in life and at work?
Yeah, I think the big thing is that you need some stress. A little bit of activation to get you going and to move you but the big thing is that you still feel competent and confident to deal with it. But when we tip into feeling overwhelmed every single day, people have never worked harder. They've never worked longer hours. They're struggling to set boundaries between work and play and family time. Productivity is actually going up, even although creativity is going down, according to a latest McKinsey study. So people are working harder than ever. Leaders are telling me how surprised they are at how well people are performing. But there does come a tipping point when we feel so overwhelmed that we struggle to sleep well at night. You're waking up at 3 a.m. with stress and anxiety, ruminating, uncertain about your future. Then it starts to impact on performance. We first become We call it the phase of delusion, where you just start running around like a chicken with its head chopped off, touching this and touching that. And then eventually your immune system starts becoming compromised. Our body thinks we're still cavemen. And the more you activate that immune system, that flight response on a daily basis eventually becomes confused and suppressed. And that's where we start having the aches and pains, the headaches, the spastic colon, the lower back pain, the sleepless nights. And that's typical signs of burnout and exhaustion. We're seeing it all over the world at the moment.
And of course, our immune systems were designed to operate when stress levels were very transient, just long enough to get us out of the path of the saber-toothed tiger. They weren't designed to continue at an arousal level of stress on an ongoing basis the way we are currently.
Absolutely, yes.
So what does it mean to be resilient then?
Often people call it bouncing back. Resilience is bouncing back. I say no, resilience is not bouncing back, because think about any trauma or difficult situation you've had, whether that be illness, COVID, job issues. You never bounce back the same person. It's never a bouncing back. I think it's more like finding your center, your gravitational center. If you think about the metaphor, I've got some trees behind me here in this picture. If you think about a storm, taking the tree this way and taking the tree that way, the storms of life, sometimes the bark cracks. But if you think about some reeds in front of a tree that are more flexible and agile, when the storms of life can take it this way and that way, it comes back to its center. And as human beings, I think our center is all about remembering who we really are. With stress, we try and emulate the boss or the culture. We're trying desperately to fit in, to have a place in an uncertain world. And I think what's needed is some courage to really just stick to who we are, to be brave enough to say, who am I? Let me come back to my center. Remember the giftings I have. What do I bring to other people? Let me hang on to that rather than being thrown by life. So I think that's the capacity, and asking yourself some different questions, questions like, what can I learn? How can I grow through this? So I think that's what resilience is, essentially. And many people think that when they talk about wellness and resilience, they talk about the physical diet, the physical exercise, but they forget that the whole other 50% of resilience is emotional and spiritual, a strong sense of managing my emotional diet every day. And spiritually, do I know who I am and what's important to me, what I value, what my purpose is? Am I able to hang on to that center? I think that makes all the difference with resilience.
Now, you're absolutely right that people forget about that 50%. And as I've probably mentioned before, I actually became an exercise instructor many years ago just for the fun of it. And people, even when they look at their physical resilience, only look at their strength and their stamina, and they forget that things like coordination and flexibility are equally elements in their physical
Absolutely, yeah.
Physical fitness, not just the things that are so obvious.
Yes.
So what would you say is the most important skill or capacity to manage one's resilience?
I think it starts off by noticing, as simple as that, which we call mindfulness. Are you able to notice when you're feeling off center? And are you able to bring yourself back to center? I think that's the important thing. So, the sort of scientific word for this is meta-awareness, the capacity to step out of yourself for a moment and say, what's going on here? Look at me. Look what's going on here. I'm off center. I'm noticing it. Many people don't notice it. When I ask people to rate their stress levels, many people say, no, I'm not stressed at all. And the next thing, they fall over. So are you in tune with when those little telltale signals in the body are screaming at you? When you're waking up at 3 a.m., are you paying attention that there's some work to be done in addressing the root cause? So I think it all starts, resilience starts with meta-awareness, the capacity to take some distance and to notice what's going on with me. And that opens up enough space. It opens up enough space for you to make other choices rather than just reacting on automatic pilot.
To be successful in today's challenging business environment, everyone needs to be a leader. And great teams depend on leaders who lead beyond the ego, bring values to full consciousness, and inspire a performance-enhancing culture. The Transpersonal Leadership Training Program from Leadership Global is available to individual leaders looking to develop their skills and behaviors for optimal results, or to groups and teams looking to take performance to the next level. Develop yourself and become the kind of transpersonal leader needed for the post-COVID world, or empower a whole team to improve their leadership competence. Find out more at leadershipglobal.com.
Can you give us an example of how reframing works? I know you've often mentioned a concept around diamonds in the dust. So I wonder whether that links to how somebody can start to reframe their thinking about things.
Yeah, I think, there's a big personal story to tell. I'm not going to tell the whole story, but there was a time in my life about 10 years ago where we had a big dream to start a place of healing and growth, a wellness center in Johannesburg, where I come from. And we put all our money in there, all our penny. My husband's a lot older than I am. We invested everything. We had such a strong vision, such a strong dream. And we chose the wrong project manager. We chose the wrong architect. We ran out of money. We went into areas well beyond our competence, and we made some very, very difficult, incorrect choices. And eventually we had to give up on that dream and lose all that money. And that for me was a big, big lesson in stress management and reframing. So what we did at that time is we went to Cape Town for 10 days, and we consciously, after many months of stress and eating too much and not sleeping well, consciously decided to do some reflection and writing. And my husband actually came up with a very clear message during that time that says, stop looking at the dust. Because if you look a little bit more deeply, you might find some valuable diamonds in this dust, diamonds of learning and growth. How can you become more rather than less because of the situation? And I started saying to myself, okay, so what are the diamonds here? Let me get out of the dust. And 2 or 3 very shiny diamonds came to me: how to choose business partners, how to stick to my knitting rather than getting into the hospitality business, how to be able to manage my relationships with business partners in a more proactive way and not choose the people that haven't got a common purpose or value system. And so those diamonds became quite evident. And as I started focusing on the diamonds, it's interesting how other options started opening. When I got out of that stress, other options started opening, like an opportunity to move to the UK, to join a college where I'm running retreats all the time and doing the work without having to own the building or own the hospitality industry. And so that for me was reframing, asking yourself a different kind of question rather than saying, why does this always happen to me, bad things? Rather say, okay, so what are the diamonds in the dust? Because let's face it, you either become more and more bitter and angry with age, or you can grow and learn and become an inspiration to others. And this resulted in a book that we wrote called Diamonds in the Dust, which has been an inspiration to many other people going through similar situations.
So that's a lovely story, Sharon, and it really does illustrate how you can reframe something awful into a lesson. And I remember once going to, and it was actually an NLP meeting, and the meeting leader said, put your hand up if you've ever made a mistake in your life. And everybody in the room put their hand up except for me. So he singled me out and said, why didn't you put your hand up? And I said, well, if I learned something from it, it wasn't a mistake. It was an opportunity to learn.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. So there's never failure, only feedback.
Yes, that's definitely a neuro-linguistic frame of mind. Yeah. What would you say is the biggest barrier towards people being more resilient? What's the thing that most often trips people up?
I think it's what I fondly call the black widow spider, the inner critic, the voice in the head that trips us up. And I think this is what reframing is all about, is to notice the inner critic. And rather than trying to kill it or squash it, that little spider, is to hear it and to love it and to embrace it. Embrace the shadow, as Jung would say, rather than pushing it away. It's part of who you are. So I fondly call my black widow spider Arthur. He sits on my shoulder all the time, and I look at him and, I get an email from the boss and I'm not included in a project. And then my black widow says, you're not good enough, or you're not safe enough. We all have these hot buttons that come from a long way back from your childhood already, from the wounds that you had in the journey of life. But are you able to notice to just slow down, to pause, to say, I notice I'm having this overreaction. Someone just touched the web of the spider and I'm overreacting. It runs out very quickly. Am I able to notice that, sense it, and then choose something else rather than reacting to it? Rather than blaming the boss or blaming other people, am I able to notice that's the inner critic, the black widow, and then open up a space to make another choice? So it's responding, becoming response-able rather than just reacting. I think that's the shift we need to make from reacting to responding.
Is there anything else on a physical level that we need to do better in order to be more resilient?
I think there's many things that we all know about, but I think the mother of all positive actions is sleep. I don't know if you've noticed, but when you're exhausted, everything in your life becomes majorly difficult. You can't think clearly, you feel emotional, you feel ratty, little molehills become mountains in your life. So I think getting into a good sleep pattern is very important. But I know it's not easy because when we're stressed, we wake up at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. because your body starts producing cortisol at 3 or 4 a.m. to wake you up at 6 when the sun comes up. But if there's already a residual high level of cortisol because of your stress during the day, you're going to be wide awake at 4 o'clock. That's the scientific reason why people wake up at 4 o'clock. So that for me is a very nice little gift. There's something going on. I'm doing that 4 a.m. thing again. Let me look deeper. What's going on here? How am I struggling with the reframing that's happening in my life? Because here's the beautiful thing. We've got absolute control over the inner world, much more than we've got on the outer world. We can't control COVID and the president and the economic situation, but you certainly got a lot of influence and control over, do you meditate every morning? Are you able to reflect? What am I thinking and feeling today? What do I want to think and feel today? How am I setting my mood for the day? Am I noticing the black widow, the inner critic? Am I able to reframe that? So I think it all starts with that self-awareness and knowing that you're in very high levels of control of the inner world and how you respond to the outer world.
Now, we absolutely control our attitude towards what's going on around us. Yeah. However difficult it is, we at least can do something about that.
Yeah, we can. Not easy, though, but I think it takes some self-discipline. And my advice would be the millimeter miracle. Do one small thing until that becomes a habit before you choose the next small thing. So even if it means just having one less teaspoon of sugar in your coffee, make that your new habit before you tackle anything else. One tiny thing at a time. That's how sustainable change happens.
Just a thought for you today. Leadership have an ICF accredited transpersonal coach training course. If you or someone you know may wish to know more about it, please visit leadershapglobal.com/TLC. Thank you very much, Sharon. That was great. And I'm looking forward next time to talking to you about resilience on an organizational level. So that's all for today's episode of Leadership Comes Alive. I'd like to thank Sharon Olivier for being with us today, and thank you all for listening. Until next time, this is Danielle Grant from Leadership Global.
You have been listening to Leadership Comes Alive, brought to you by Leadership Global. Join us next time as we continue to explore transpersonal leadership skills that bring about better performing, sustainable organizations. We'll talk with you next time on Leadership Comes Alive. Visit leadershapglobal.com.